In celebration of the upcoming May 4th release of Avengers Infinity War, I recently began a weekly series of reviews for movies set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Last week, I did a review of Iron Man 3, but this time we're gonna skip all the way up to the most recent entry in the MCU, Black Panther.
Don't freeze.
I never freeze.
Set soon after the events of Captain America: Civil War, Black Panther follows the latest adventures of T'Challa, the newly crowned king of Wakanda, who attempts to track down one of Wakanda's enemies, Ulysses Klaue, while also dealing with the arrival of a mysterious new enemy, Killmonger, whose ties to T'Challa's past will shape his decisions on Wakanda's future. Now, if I'm gonna be totally honest, I was getting more and more nervous about this movie before I went to go see it. I mean, I'm always skeptical about any movie that gets a ton of hype, that's just how I am, but all the build-up and all the attention, like the media, celebrities, everybody was giving it just reminded me a lot of Wonder Woman. Not that there's anything wrong with Wonder Woman, but in my personal opinion, it just wasn't as great as everybody said it was. I mean, come on, was it really tier worthy? But look, I'm getting sidetracked. The point is, all the good news about Black Panther seemed like a ton of people were just jumping on the hype train, you know what I mean? Thankfully though, after watching it, I can safely say that's not entirely true. Sure, the movie had some faults, but overall, I liked Black Panther. I thought it was a good movie. The soundtrack was kick-ass, although I did kind of miss Legend Has It from the teaser. I thought that would have been cool to hear in the movie, and the action was pretty decent. Even the story was pretty solid, focusing specifically on T'Challa's life in Wakanda and doing a little bit of world building by showing you just enough of Wakanda to keep you interested, but not too much to the point where you get bored by just looking at one singular location. And speaking of, I liked what all we saw of Wakanda. I thought it looked awesome and it looked very stylized. Even what we got to see of it from street level looked pretty interesting. It could have been very easy for director Ryan Coogler or the special effects team to just make Wakanda look like an African New York or like a weird techno jungle or something like the 90s Fantastic Four cartoon, but thankfully the city doesn't look like either of those, or really anything we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. If I had to compare it to anything, I'd say it reminded me a lot of like a more down-to-earth version of Asgard, which by the way is also something I think Black Panther does a lot better than the Thor movies. Like, we're introduced to this cool future-looking city and we actually get to spend some time exploring it in the same movie. Asgard's cool and all, but it's a real shame we never really get a singular take on what all life is like there, you know what I mean? Going back to Black Panther, honestly, I think the writers did a great job at making the movie feel both big and small in scale. Like, the consequences of Killmonger's actions definitely feel like it impact all of the MCU in a negative way, and I think a big part of why it feels like that is because of how Wakanda is portrayed in this movie, but at the same time, we don't get like a Guardians of the Galaxy 2 style shot where we actually see negative consequences spreading out beyond the edges of Wakanda. Overall, I do think the pacing was a bit weird in some parts of the movie, but it wasn't bad. Really, my biggest complaint about the movie actually doesn't have a whole lot to do with the plot itself, but more the citizens of Wakanda. See, the accents everybody had to put on kept taking me out of the whole thing because, again, it reminded me a lot of Wonder Woman. Like, both of these movies had the exact same problem. Either a lot of the actors kept dropping it, or they sounded like they were doing a bad imitation of the lead actor, in this case Chadwick Boseman, especially the opening scene in California. Without getting into a bunch of details, let me just say that some of the accents were awful. Although I do think the guy that played the younger version of Forrest Whitaker did an amazing job at recreating the classic Forrest Whitaker eye, so at least that's something. Speaking of the characters, I think it's absolutely shameful that this movie wasted both Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger and Andy Serkis's Ulysses Klaue. I mean, these guys are interesting. I thought Klaue was a fun character since Age of Ultron, and Killmonger's cool. He's tough. He could have been an interesting villain to explore in a Black Panther sequel. We don't even get to see Klaue get superpowers in this movie. I mean, it's not like I expected Andy Serkis to throw on red spandex and purple underwear while babbling about cuttlefish.
Cuttlefish. Deep sea fish. They make lights, disco lights, to hypnotize their prey, and then I saw a documentary, it was terrifying.
But at the same time, I was at least hoping, I don't know, he'd get mutated or something, like in the Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon. That could have been cool. That having been said, I do think the fact that I really wanted to see both of these guys come back in the future speaks a lot to the performances both actors gave in this movie. I thought they were great. Really, everybody gave excellent performances in this one, although I do think the chemistry between T'Challa and Nakia wasn't entirely the greatest. I don't know, it just sort of seemed stapled onto the rest of the movie to me. Moving on to the action, I thought it was alright. I mean, it was solid overall, don't get me wrong, but it was just hard to tell what was happening sometimes. I mean, the fight scenes feature the same shaky cam and quick cuts a ton of action movies have nowadays, and a lot of the action takes place at night, and it really isn't lit that well, except for, you know, like an occasional flash from a gun or something. There's also this one-shot fight sequence in a casino, which you think would be awesome, but it really wasn't pulled off all that well. The action bookending the sequence was cool, but the choreography at the beginning of the sequence was just a little bit off. I mean, you could clearly tell the bad guys were waiting for their cue to jump in, and really the whole thing felt kind of slow. If Black Panther 2 2 ends up having one of these scenes, I'm hoping that Marvel or Ryan Coogler or somebody gets the fight choreographer from one of these other projects that had a great one-take fight scene like Oldboy or Daredevil or something like that. Now there is a fight scene towards the end between T'Challa and Killmonger that was pretty damn good as far as the choreography goes, but the only thing holding it back was the CGI. I don't want to say it was horrendous, but like holy shit, somebody actually approved half this stuff? And I'm not even trying to say like the CGI was bad overall, I thought it was mostly fine, but certain parts were awful. And some of these scenes, like one of the last times when T'Challa enters the spirit world to talk to his dad, I can forgive something like that for the CGI not looking entirely realistic. I mean, it is supposed to be an otherworldly location, of course it's not going to look realistic, right? But when this movie broke out a couple CGI rhinos that looked like they borrowed elements from like The Mummy Returns or that one episode of The Walking Dead, that's bad, okay? That's inexcusable to me. But overall, is Black Panther the best MCU movie of all time, like a bunch of people have been saying since it came out? Well, no, not really. Like I said, it had its faults. The CGI could have been tweaked in some parts, and the villains, like some of Marvel's other movies, end up getting wasted when they should have been put in positions where they could have come back for future installments.
Damn! He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
But at the same time, Black Panther is still a great movie. The story's pretty solid, the villains, while wasted, were still really interesting and they leave you wanting more. Overall, it's a great movie. If you have the chance to go see it, go see it. I would probably wait just a little bit though, because right now all the theaters are kind of full, but definitely go see it when you get the chance. But anyways guys, that's my take on Black Panther. If you guys agreed with anything I said in this video, or you have your own thoughts about the movie you want to throw out there, then go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, then go ahead and click that like button, and if you're new, maybe consider clicking that subscribe button too. I've also got links to my Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and Patreon in the description. You should probably check those out too. And if you want to see more of my content, then you can click the link to my last video. It's right there in the middle of your screen. Alright, and I will see you all next time.